It is more important than ever that
You've
realize
been
that
to
you
the
are
Feathermane
divine.
Soul
And
Wisdom
that's why body
podcast,
theology
hosted by Kit
is
Kilstow.
so important.
Learn more about
because
Feathermane
if you're listening
Soul
to my voice,
at
there's a good chance that you
feathermanesoul.com.
fall
Kit's
into a
passionate
marginalized
about
group.
embodied
You might be
living and finding
neurodivergent, you
authentic
might be
joy by
queer,
connecting with
you
yourself
might
and
be
others.
chronically ill. You
Kit
might
loves
consider
working with
yourself disabled.
neurodivergent,
You might be in the
chronically ill,
intersection
or
of those
disabled
in some
individuals,
Venn
as well
diagram
as
of those
anyone
identities.
who wants
And
to
you may
reclaim
have
the
other
stories and find new stories
and
for
what
them.
that means is that
Music
there are
is Running with the Horses
within
by
our
Purple
culture
Planet
whose
Music.
sole purpose
This
is to strip you
podcast
of your
is hosted
power
on the Muse Charmer
and
Media
to
Network.
strip you of
Find out more
a grounded
by
belief in
visiting the
yourself.
podcast
And
website
so
and following
when
the
you
links to
realize
Muse
that
Charmer.
you are divine, every
Please
single
don't forget
one of
to
us,
like,
every single
subscribe,
living
or follow
creature
the
on this
podcast
planet,
at
every
your
rock,
favorite
every
podcast
cloud,
listening or social media
everything
site.
is
Thank you.
divine. And when you realize that, then that gives you agency and power to make changes in your life. Most importantly, it allows you to really start to create restoration with your stories and really starts to help you discover your authentic self and bring that authentic self to the world. And that's what we'll be talking about in this inaugural episode of Feathermane Soul Wisdom. Hello and welcome. I'm Kit Kilstow, your host for Feathermane Soul Wisdom. If you were listening to me on the Chicken Yogi Show, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you're new to Feathermane Soul or you're just discovering my work, welcome. I'm just as glad that you're here as well. I recently completed speaking in a summit talking about finding your embodied being and using that embodiment to find your authentic joy. I've been posting periodic videos. I won't say they're daily. I've kind of switched into an every other day pattern, but periodic short little videos on YouTube at Feathermane Soul or on my Instagram at Kit Kilstow or on Feathermane Soul on Facebook, just giving you little snippets to give you something to think about. I'm hoping to be able to sit down and do some long form content. And one of the ways in which I want to do that is through these podcasts. So, as I said, this is the first episode, the inaugural episode of the new Feathermane Soul Wisdom. I want to start with this episode by talking just a little bit about myself. Please indulge me and telling you where I'm coming from with this. I am a study of religion. I've always been fascinated by religion and what we believe and how we connect with our spirituality, what impacts those have on our culture. I have always been extremely fascinated by that, and I am currently working on my master's degree in religious studies. My focus is on liberation theology, disability, and specifically disability and neurodivergent liberation theology. And when I say those words, I have no doubt that you are thinking of a very specific Western religion, monotheistic religion, a very specific worldview. And so what I want to just start right off the bat here in this is to say that nobody, no belief system, nobody, whether no culture, nobody has a monopoly on spirituality. If you look at the dictionary definition of spirituality, there's a lot in there about God, and I think that has to do a lot with our cultural underpinnings. But one of the definitions that I go by and that really, hits home for me is spirituality is our connection to something larger outside ourselves. As soon as I hear those words, I am reminded of taking my cell phone app outside, my spouse getting our telescope, And he knows a lot about astronomy. That's an interest of his. And so he will help point out, Jupiter, Mars, different stars, Aldebaran, Sirius, the Summer Triangle, all of those astronomy things. And, I've been fascinated by space as well, but not having the scientific background that he does. A lot of that, frankly, kind of goes over my head. I find it very hard, for example, to imagine these stars that are light years away from us and like hundreds of thousands of light years away from us. So the light that is reaching us is older than, say, like the Roman Empire. The light that's reaching us maybe was illuminated and cast forth into space thousands of years ago. That to me just blows my mind. That is what I mean by being connected to something bigger than us. It does not have to be your idea of God or divinity. It does not have to be your idea of soul or spirit or higher self, although I do use those words. What is bigger than us is whatever gives you wonder, whatever gives you joy. Religious scholars talk about the numinous. Religious scholars talk about the sacred, the holy. The things that you look at, say like the big trees in California, the big redwoods, and you just look at them and you just think, my gosh, connected to this, I am so insignificant. You stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon and look down. And then you just start to process the time, the thousands of years, the millennia that the Colorado River wore down into the Grand Canyon. And you just stand there and you think, wow, I am just a speck on this planet. That is connecting to something bigger than yourself. And it does not have to involve divinity. And so that's what I like to always kind of set forth when I introduce myself, is that I am not trying to push any specific worldview. I am not trying to push any specific theology. Personally, I am a pantheist. I believe that everything, the universe, everything is divine. I believe that you're divine and I'm divine, and the cat that is sitting next to me on the desk is divine. Cats know they're divine, let's be honest. But I also am a polytheist. Now, on some levels, I interact with the gods as the divine deity beings that they are. On some levels, I see them as just aspects of our human psyche. And this is how we as humans explore our psyche. I'm a storyteller. If you can't tell, I'm a storyteller. And so whether I am in conversation with the gods, conversation with myself, or whether I am writing a fiction story, that to me is exploring what makes us divine, what makes us unique, and what makes us human. Because in the end, if you're listening to my voice, then you are a human being having a human experience. Some would say you're a bit of the universe having a human experience. And I feel like we've lost that. I'm going to speak specifically to my neurodivergent listeners out there. One of the reasons why I came to this work is because I saw so many coaches, so many therapists, so many people trying to help, and hopefully you can hear the air quotes around the word help. And I don't want to dismiss what they're doing. They're doing the best they can with what they know. But for so many people, they are trying to help the neurodivergent community by helping them fit in with neurotypical society, by helping them blend in, by helping them mask, even as they talk about unmasking. And I'm aware that what I'm talking about is really specific to the neurodivergent community, but I hope that if you are not of the community, you can hear a little bit of an echo of your own experience in what I'm talking about. The drive to be more productive, the drive to do more, the drive to get into employment or self-employment or work as if you don't have inherent value and inherent worth just because you are existing. And that is true. I mean, just because you are existing, just because you are alive, And you have inherent value and inherent worth. Your value and your worth is not tied into what you produce or what you create or what you make or how much you earn or any of those external values. You have intrinsic worth because you exist. And so when I looked at all that, I was like, okay, as a neurodivergent person, everybody is telling me how to be more productive, how to do more work. Who is telling me how to connect with myself? Who is helping me connect with myself to go through my stories, to see what stories are working for me, to see what stories maybe were given to me by people I went to school with who bullied the hell out of me that I'm still carrying with me here. Well, it's going to be, 25, 27 years. I'm not going to do the math on air. Decades after I left school, these people, their story still has an impact on me. Who is helping me to work through those stories to see that they're not true? And I realize that that's my role. That's my purpose, is to help you work through stories. It was amazing being diagnosed as neurodivergent because it opened up doors for me. All of a sudden, I could be my authentic self without those bullies telling me that I was wrong, that I was weird, that I was awful, that I didn't fit in, because I don't have to fit in with them. I didn't want to fit in with them. I wanted to be me. I wanted to follow my interests. I wanted to put my dreams and my desires and my goals out there in the world and have them seen. And you probably want that too. And we all deserve to be seen, and we all deserve to be validated as human beings with our own drives and our own goals, and not have to fall in with a bunch of people or follow a group think. So my version of spirituality and body theology is helping you, first of all, see that you are divine. Theology is the study of God, and it's the study of divinity. And so I want you to study, and in your embodied experience, I want you to understand that you are divine. Everything that you're feeling, that you're experiencing, it's okay. Everything that you are experiencing or feeling is a perfectly normal human reaction to whatever you're going through. And if you can make that connection, if you can figure out to connect with yourself, to find your true authentic self and make that connection, that then helps you to connect with other people. It helps you to show your face to other people, to say, hey, this is who I am. And to make those good connections. And when somebody doesn't really want what you're offering, to say, that's okay. I'll go spend my time with people who actually want what I'm offering, who actually respect my boundaries, who actually respect me as a human being with intrinsic worth and value. So there's a lot I could say about that, but I just kind of wanted to lay that foundation down, and those are layers that we'll be peeling back and we'll be exploring. And so my work with Feathermane Soul is to help you connect with yourself, to help you connect with others, and to help you connect with the wider world. And when we do that, you start to find your authentic self. You start to bring your authentic self through your embodied living. So let's touch a little bit on what I mean by embodied. It seems like everywhere I turn these days, and of course I'm spending a lot of time with my religious studies as I work through this fall semester, but I'm running into the word embodied and people talking about living embodied, talking about being a being. And so again, I always like to go back to the dictionary. I'm looking at the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and when I look at embodied, when somebody is embodied, it means to cause or become a body or part of a body, incorporate, to represent in human or animal form, to personify. It also means to make concrete and perceptible. So if we think about that, to represent in human or animal form, well, unless, unless you are not a human who is listening to me, and if you are, I mean, I know, I believe that my cats and my horses understand me, then please let me know, because I totally believe that animals know a lot more than we give them credit for. But there's a good chance, if you're listening to my voice, if you're hearing me, you're human. You know how to work the computer, you know how to work the podcast app, however you're listening to me. It's a joke. I hope you understand that. But if you're listening to me, then you are representing a human in human form, and technically a human in animal form, because humans are animals too. I mean, we could go through the taxonomy, the genus and species, but we're not a plant, we're animals, according to science. So to represent in human form, check. Yeah, that means embodied, and that's what you are. To cause to become a body or part of a body. Well, you're in a body. When we think about groups of people as bodies of people, you are certainly part of a body. You are a part of the groups of people that you identify with, friends, family. If you're neurodivergent, you're part of the neurodivergent community. You may be part of the queer community. You may be part of the disabled or chronically ill community. You may be a person of color. You may identify as a part of a body for your community or where you live. So many different ways that we label people, so many different ways that we create those connections. So yeah, you are embodied because you are becoming part of a body or a body to make concrete and perceptible. So there's a whole field of philosophy that's called phenomenology that talks about perception that I am very fascinated by, and I am just barely scratching the surface on right now in my studies. So I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of what is a perception and what do we perceive. But if you hold out your hand, you can touch your hand. And philosophy loves to ask, really deep questions like, well, what is a hand? And we're not going to go there on this podcast, but, you are sitting in a chair, you're walking, you're at the gym, you're at your computer, you're driving, whatever you're doing at this time, you are concrete and perceptible. I can see you because, as far as I know, nobody has invented a cloak of invisibility yet. I know science is trying, but there are perceptions there. You can hear my voice. There is perceptions there. So I am embodied because I am here and you're listening to my voice. You are embodied because I can perceive you out there listening to me, or I sure hope you're listening to me. But if you send me a note, you're perceptible. If you say, hey, I heard this podcast, and you share it on social media, that's perceptible. So yeah, when we look at the dictionary definition of embodied, it basically means, hey, you exist, you represent, you are part of a group, you are able to be perceived, you are not invisible. So you are embodied. Now, when we look at embodiment beyond that, there's a lot of things that go into our existence, and I don't want to talk too long about it. I like to keep these podcasts kind of short, but the truth is, your intersectionalities, nobody is a blank piece of paper. Nobody exists in a vacuum. Your communities, those communities I was just talking about you being a part of, your communities, your intersectionalities, they layer on top of you. They layer on top of your being. You are taught things about yourself. You are taught things about how you're perceived by other people. You are taught ways to act, ways not to act by your parents, by your society, by your culture, by media, by your friends, by your family, by the random person you meet at the grocery store that says, "Hey, I really like your hair." That all of that affects your perception, their perception of you, your perception of them, your perception of yourself. And so when I talk about living as an embodied being, it means, first of all, being aware of all of that. It also means being aware that you are human and emotions are human, and not censoring or giving yourself judgment for whatever you feel, whatever's going on. Bodies are weird. Bodies can do strange things. There's so many interconnected processes in our bodies that when you think about how they affect the way you think, when you think about how they affect how you feel, if you're chronically ill, if you're disabled because of a medical condition, whether it's visible or invisible to other people, it sure as hell is visible to you. You can perceive your medical condition. You can perceive that your brain as a neurodivergent person maybe works a little bit differently than other people you know. Now, first of all, that is okay. That is part of being uniquely human. But it means that when we become aware of that, we accept it. We embody it. We begin to apply that to our perceptions of ourselves and to others. And so that's And all of that impacts that spirituality, that connection to something larger than ourselves, because it's different for every person. But the theories that I had held true about myself for over 45 years shattered in the instant that I realized that I had that knowledge that I am neurodivergent. And my whole world changed. And it is not an understatement to say that. Now, your transformation, your work to become embodied may not be like that. It may be a slower unfolding process. But a lot of times, once we realize those stories don't serve us, we immediately create restoration. We immediately restore our relationship with ourselves as we work through those stories. So that's what we're going to explore together here on the Feathermane Soul Wisdom Show. I'm going to talk about the various tools that I use. I'm going to talk about some different theories. I might even talk about some books that I've read. I'm going to talk about all of that. It is also my hope to find other guests to talk to about that and hopefully bring things in from other people. So for now, I'm just going to say thank you so much for listening to this first show. Thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot to me. Head on over to feathermanesoul.com. Go ahead and go to the podcast. You can follow this podcast at any of your favorite podcast outlets. You can follow Feathermane Soul on Facebook. On Instagram, I'm Kit Kalestow. On Blue Sky, I'm Kit Author. And all of those links are at feathermanesoul.com. So I really hope to get to know you, to discuss more deeply. I'm very passionate about this subject, if you can't tell. And I wish you just so much kindness to yourself. I hope that you're kind to other people. And I wish you so much joy. And I hope that we can move together to help lift up everybody and to help build up everybody, because there is nothing more powerful than somebody, once they realize that they are fully embodied and completely authentic. Thank you so much. You're listening to Feathermane Soul Wisdom, a podcast designed for people looking to live embodied lives and find their authentic selves. This show is hosted by Kit Kalestow, body theologian and spiritual mentor. If you're looking to get in touch with your inner spirit, then this show is for you. Thanks for listening. And now, this week's show.